Okay, so real quick market update before I go get my haircut and stuff. So market basically opened 40 minutes ago or some shit. But let's take a look at the SPX. If you haven't been following the SPX to base your buys and sell signals, you should be doing that. So this price is going to now move here to the high of 23.31. Obviously, you got a doji formation right here. This is to be expected. You know, you can't have the S&P 500 just keep moving up. So I did kind of see it coming. You know, whatever. Anyway, so you know, you got this doji right here, which is, you know, a sign that you got some market turnover. So I do foresee it coming back to this original level, keeping in line with the original overall trend here. So, you know, you might get some pullback up to roughly, say here. You know, I wouldn't be surprised if it starts turning over here to test the resistance once more. So, you know, right now, as far as I'm concerned, if you're playing off the S&P 500, as you know, then you should be considering selling if your stock isn't performing too well. So, anyways, I wish I could show you all the Dow Jones Industrial Average, but for some reason this trading app isn't really showing it. So DJIA, let me zoom out here. So anyway, the Dow Jones Industrial, I'm looking at another one on my other screen here, but it's looking about the same. It's leveling off. You know, it's been, you know, following the S&P 500. So if you're working the industrial, that one's, you know, finding some resistance. It's still up today, but you know, just be careful trading some industrial stocks. Let's see. OCLR. I'm just going to show all this one because of some people I know that are trading this. Anyway, this one's doing really good. If it does manage to close above this overall trend line right here, or above the overall resistance here, then we'll be in pretty good shape for it to keep going and test the resistance like this. You know, something that would look like that, you know. So that's what you should be looking for. If you haven't, what I typically do at this location, I would set a limit sell at of 50% of my stocks around this area to lock in some profits and then ride the wave on the way up. If not, just, you know, sell on the way down. So let me just take a look at my list here. So let's just look over some key stocks. BBRY acting exactly as predicted. So you've got this not this doji, but this negative candle here. So I do foresee it coming back down, at least test this 20 EMA, and then come back down to this original location. So we'll see what it ends up doing, but we'll be able to pick it up next week. In my opinion, I think we'll be able to pick it up. But do keep in mind that the overall trend resistance would be up here, so I wouldn't be surprised if it just tries to come back up a little bit. So, you know, if you haven't sold 50% here, then you should be considering selling 50%. So at least you lock in some profits. So BNTC, I'm just going to go over the whole list again and see how it's acting. So this one, it is going to test the retracement at 38.2. So I do foresee it coming back down to this, at least at a 263, 262 area right here before you should even consider purchasing it. You know, so you do have this wedge pattern here. Anyway, so we'll just have to wait and see what it does tomorrow. This is one of those key stocks that I would want to pay attention to. Check tomorrow. And let's see, Twitter. Twitter's, you know, acting as predicted again. Oops. It's filling the gap. So, you know, we had a recent gap down. It's probably going to head back up to this level of resistance. So I do foresee it hitting here and testing this resistance, probably come back down for a little bit before coming back up for some time. So This one's just one to watch. But you know, with this candle, it's just well, at least for in terms of volatility, this one's one of those that you buy and just kind of wait, because this one doesn't tend to move so quickly, unless you unless you consider this one right here for a loss of, well, I can't really see it, so for a loss of almost 30% if you didn't catch, or if you didn't have your stop loss on the way down. This was a pretty drastic move here. I do believe this might be around where Vines was purchased or something. I don't know. Anyway, hold on. Yeah. So, anyways, Twitter is doing pretty good filling the gap. You know, this is just playing the probabilities. Typically, gaps do tend to be filled, or there is an attempt to fill these gaps. So PFE is sort of a down day. Let's see what the fidelity looks like. Yeah, so anyways, PFE being part of the S&P 500, it is finding some resistance along with it. You know, if you're still in it, that's okay. If you remember that I said that it could find a little bit of resistance right here, and it kind of is in conjunction with the S&P 500. I'm not surprised it is finding some resistance, but getting out now might be a little too early. Just basing it on the low volume that you have right here. But you know, it is early in the morning. Volume should be picking up. But if this red candle, this negative price action is associated with a small volume, this is not a true down move. So I'm gonna wait and see what it does, because there's no point in getting out of position just yet. So that's PFE. Let me just let's see, where is it? So PFEG set. Oh, where am I? Alright, here we go. G set. And I added G set to my notes here on accident tomorrow. So G set, another one that you should have your eye on. Did set a buy signal here. I do foresee it to come back up here as predicted. It's doing pretty good. You know, the S&P 500, again, like I said, if you follow the indexes, all of them, Dow Jones, whatever, just do your general analysis, follow what sector this is in. This is going to be the telemarketing sector, so like Sprint, Verizon, whatever. So anyways, I do foresee this coming up. They Sprint, Verizon, and all of them are under review right now, so you know, there could be some news coming up. You have an earnings report coming up on the 23rd, so be wary of that. You know, you could have some negative or positive price action prior to this. So you know, this could really go either way. What I would do, if you haven't done so, is just look back, read up on the news, why did this go up a little bit, and see if this news would correlate with an uptick on the earnings report. So that's GSAT. Sprint, I'm just going to take a look at Sprint just because it's one of those telemarketers. So if GSAT is doing good, you might have some sympathy play on here. So let's get rid of this. This is just a bunch of mumbo jumbo. So anyway, Sprint doing pretty good. If you did buy down here at the doji candle, you would be up 10% over the course of about 5 days. So AMD, AMD, I always bring up AMD for the obvious reason that, God, I need to change this setting. Hold on. Time axis, let's put that to 20. Ooh. Let's do 20. Okay. So, although you do have the development of a doji candle, I'm not convinced that this is going to be an uptick unless it's associated with a big volume spike. You know, this is probably just the market testing the lateral resistance right here, so we'll just have to wait and see what it does. Typically, I would assume that this would go back down to this level of support before it finds resistance back up, but you could find some pennant resistance right here. So, you know, it could go either way. And just, you know, wait and see what afternoon. Take a look at it in the afternoon. If there's, you know, some heavy movement up, then you might be in good shape for a little momentum trade if it manages to break through the 1427 barrier, which is the high, or the recent high. So that's one to look out for. I would set your alert for that. HK, God, if I can get this to zoom in correctly. So anyways, HK testing that level of resistance. If you do remember, I do want this to come back down to this level, so at least we can bring it back up and get around, 8% on a perfect trade. But this is going to be one of those that you should be waiting for. HK, so OZM, simply just on watch, we're waiting for it to come back down. It seems to be having a little consolidation period right here, where the market is simply just trying to decide on the value of this stock. So with it being so close to the 200 EMA, I'm not surprised that there is some consolidation right here, because this is something that a lot of people are going to be looking into. So this is a pretty interesting one. I'd set the level of support around this level right there. So if it does end up coming back down, I do think it would come back down here. If we're real lucky, it'll come back down here, so we get a better, profit margin. But we'll just have to wait and see. There is some pretty good volume spikes on these days. Not insane volume relative to these up days, but still larger than what I would consider the average of this stock. I would consider the average of the stock being roughly around here, maybe a bit lower, probably around there. So if this day continues to go up, although you do have a downtrend on these days, so we'll just have to wait and see what it does. Again, just monitor volumes, and this one could be interesting. It could really go either way, being so close to the 200 EMA. So if it does have an uptick, then could be something to consider on the way up. But do keep in mind that the S&P 500, I do foresee it coming back down for a little bit, which could show some consolidation or prolonged consolidation, especially if this stock is seemingly favorable. AOBC, we did take a look at this one yesterday. Seems to be failing here on the S&P 500. This is one of those, let's see, if you bought let's say later on in the day, you'd be around negative 3.6. As far as I'm concerned with my risk tolerance, this isn't something, this isn't a position I'd be getting out of just yet. Unless it manages to break through the low of the 1881, then you pretty much have a confirmation that this is going to be a long-term downtrend. At least for me, in terms of the long term, I tend to just stay in for a week or so. So anyways, RAD, this was our missed opportunity. If you remember this one, from last week, I did bring this one up, but I totally forgot about it. So the resistance on this one is not going to be on the high of the day, it's going to be on the opening of the day. So resistance is here, and it's going to follow it down to this region, just typical ABC pattern, and then we'll catch it on the way up again. So hopefully there's no long consolidation or a wedge pattern that leads it to go like that. I wouldn't be surprised if it does. So if it comes down, I would be wary of this location around this area. So we'll just have to wait and see what it does. Per usual. So that's all I've got for you right now. I'll update the watch list as things come up. So yep.